me mastering the skills of the gimbal right away. You're looking at my hat. Hi there. That's a little bit better, isn't it? First thing I want to ask everyone is, what's the sound like? Is it windy? It's windy here. Is that affecting the sound? I'm not sure how to protect the microphone at the moment. It's something I'm still getting used to. So the forecast for this morning was 70% rain. So we're all hanging out for that 30%. And we need the combined collective of the voyagers to wish that rain away, or at least to hold off for about an hour. So is everybody here so far this morning? Who joined Alex's tour yesterday? That was pretty epic, wasn't it? Morning Heidi, morning Elizabeth, morning G, Michelle and Pat. How are you all? So I'm actually quite excited to see the brightness against the water this morning, which is going to be a little bit easier to see the view that we're looking at than we had about a week ago. It should be nice. We've got a good signal, so that's promising. Hi Jane, how are you? We've got a few UK people here today. I've come prepared for every season. I've got my sun hat and my umbrella, so we should be covered whatever happens. I've decided to start from a different point this morning, so we're sitting kind of in a little park area surrounded by apartment buildings, and I'll turn around and show you that in a moment. So does anyone have any tips from other guides as to how you like to spend the first 10 minutes waiting for the tour to start? I probably should have a cup of coffee with me or something, shouldn't I? Just listening to the rainbow lorikeets, they're very noisy. We had a small intimate group this morning. Got some summer insects being chatty beside me as well. Hi Bronwyn. So this is officially my third tour. Still getting used to things, still finding my way, feeling my way a little, and I apologise if there's any uncomfortable silences. We'll try and minimise those. Hi Michelle. Before you go to sleep, yes, what time is it? It's coming up to 10 o'clock here, so it must be about 11 p.m. where you are. Is that about right? I decided to hold it a bit later because I thought I might be able to entice a few of those North Americans to join us if I made it a bit later. But if that's not successful, then we can always go back to an earlier time. It's always tricky, the different time zones around the world, isn't it? Hi, Dave. Hi, Natalie. You're in the Netherlands, so it's about an hour later than the UK there. You're coming up to midnight, I guess, are you? Is that right? That's so true, Michelle. It really is. Especially if you're not one of the high-profile destinations that people make an extra effort for. Or until you've built up a big following like Alex has. 3 minutes to go. I guess a little about me. I was born in Sydney, so I've lived here all my life, apart from the years that I spent travelling. I spent 3 years living in the UK. I lived quite close to London, places like Hounslow and Twickenham. I used to work for a company in London, and while we were living there, I got to travel a fair bit, which was fantastic. Hi, Dee. Hi, Ava. Hi, Jill. Glad you could all join me this morning. Hi, Anne. Feel free to pop in the chat where you're all from. Let's get to know each other. I know some of you probably know each other quite well already. Well, Michelle, I haven't. I'm not a tour guide. That's the thing. I have a passion. I have a passion for my area. I have a curiosity. I've travelled a lot. I've worked in sales. So it kind of made sense that I could put all that together and use it for a good purpose. So hopefully that's a winning formula, and I guess the proof is in the pudding. Feel free to let me know where I'm going wrong. I'm always happy to learn. All right, less than a minute, nearly a minute to go. So I guess I should stand up and get ready, shouldn't I? That's so true, Bonwin. I travelled to Broken Hill last year. It took 13 hours on the train and I didn't even leave the state. All right, let's stand up, turn the camera around. You don't want to look at me anymore. So this is where I am right now. You didn't expect to be seeing Rimini this morning, did you? It's the curiosity of where we are at the moment, is that all these apartment blocks are named after Mediterranean places, which is kind of weird. I think it's a bit of Australian cultural cringe. We prefer to be something else, or something else, yeah, somewhere else, without realising that we have a lot to offer. Hi, Margaret. All right, so here we are in Wentworth Point, and before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting today on the lands of the Wangal people of the Eora Nation and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. What that's called is an acknowledgement of country, and we do it just to acknowledge that the Indigenous people who lived here before us, before we arrived over 200 years ago, never ceded sovereignty, and it's their lands that we live on today. So looking up to the left, we can see that there's a bridge up there. We're standing on the shores of Homebush Bay, which is an offshoot of the Parramatta River, and the Parramatta River flows into Sydney Harbour. So at this point, where I'm standing, looking to the north, is the Parramatta River just beyond that bridge, and we're about 10 miles or 16 kilometres upstream from Sydney Harbour Bridge. On our left, this suburb is called Wentworth Point. It's a fairly new suburb, as in the majority of it is less than 20 years old. Quite pleasant, lots of gardens, lots of landscaping going on, palm trees, fairly low rise, not like where I live, where the developers like to put in 20-storey buildings, which is not so pleasant. Across the way we have Rhodes, which is another fairly new developing suburb, and I'll talk about that building with the strange structure on top of it in a moment. But these are the stars of the show today, the 2 shipwrecks. And in total we hope to see 4 of the shipwrecks today. So the one on the left, the remnants, there's very little of it left, is called the SS Mortlake Bank, and the one on the right, with all the forest growing out of the top of it, is called the SS Airfield. They were both similar size once upon a time. We're going to walk around the bay towards them, and we'll see different perspectives of those shipwrecks, including the vantage point where the most popular photographs are taken that you may well have seen on social media. There's a popular post that often goes around describing and portraying images of abandoned places, and this one's described as the floating forest. So you may well have seen images on social media of that vessel. Hi ladies who've just joined us. I'm glad you could come. So we're going to walk over that little footbridge over there and past this apartment complex. So right now we're in, obviously, January, which is summer in Australia. It's just coming up to 10 o'clock in the morning. It's a little windy. I'm hoping that's not affecting my sound. Please let me know if it is. Hi, Angela. And we're looking at getting to around about 24 degrees today, which sounds pleasant. But believe me, in Sydney humidity, it can feel like you're in a sauna. I'm blessed at the moment with that breeze coming off the water, which is lovely. In the Dharawal calendar, Australia has numerous different Indigenous calendars. In the Dharawal calendar, which is the area around Sydney Basin, this is called Maragul Baru, and it's a time of the male kangaroos becoming more aggressive as they fight for superiority. Cooler than the last few days, it sure is. That breeze is nice. It's also the time when thunderstorms are more common, and it's actually forbidden to eat meat in the ancient Indigenous calendar because of the risk of fire from the cooking fires. And that's probably a lesson that we as Westerners could have learnt, how to understand fire better. Do you see many kangaroos near the bay? No. No, we don't. Western development has pushed the kangaroos largely out of the Sydney area. There's a possibility that I may be able to spend some time in the Blue Mountains coming up over the next few months. And if I do, I might be able to take you to some places where there are still kangaroos. We do get some wildlife. We have a lot of nocturnal wildlife and bird life. So as we walk along here, we're now approaching the SS airfield. Just before we get to that and cross over this little bridge, just want to give you a little sneaky peek at the property on our right. But first of all, here's an Australian fruit. Have you heard of lily pillies? It's quite popular for jam making. So this is a lily pilly tree. I heard a rustle in the bushes just then. That was probably a lizard. Okay, so there's no one hanging around, so we don't have to feel awkward about doing this. Let's have a quick look over here to our right. How would you like to live here? They've got their own little beach. Oh, there's a person there. I won't do that. Multi-level pools. And their view is Homebush Bay, which is rather lovely. Now, if you wanted to live in this area, you could pay a bit over $1 million for a 3-bedroom apartment, or you could pay around about $3,500 a month to rent that same apartment. Okay, so now we approach the popular spot for the photographers to take a photo of this beautiful, intriguing water shipwreck. I'll just pause here a moment. Sorry, am I in your way? I'll get out of your way. There's a family here trying to take photos themselves. I have one of those. Can I take a quick glimpse? I'm live streaming. I've got one of these. They're fantastic. Good luck. I hope you have fun out there today. Thank you. Okay, this is the shot we're looking for. And the building over there in the background is called Road Central. It's a complex of apartments on top, shops and restaurants down below. And that unusual looking structure on the top of the building is called a heliostat. And its purpose is to reflect light through an array of mirrors onto the surrounding precinct so that the area overshadowed by the buildings isn't in perpetual shade. There's only 2 buildings with a heliostat, 2 residential buildings in the world, and they're both in Sydney. The other one's located quite close to Central Station. I was over there quite close to there yesterday looking at opportunities for another tour, so we might actually have an opportunity, as I said, on another tour to get quite close to it. The wrecks were deliberately scuttled here. This used to be quite an industrial area. It was from the start of the 20th century through till about the 1970s. This was quite industrial. There were paint factories, there were chemical companies, there was an abattoir and tannery. And the area around here was actually pretty toxic. The soil was toxic, the water was considered dead. So it really wasn't much of an impact to scuttle a few boats here as well and just leave them. So no, the wrecks now actually form part of the landscape. They are used for nesting sites for seabirds, and I imagine that there are similar to reef, but below the waterline. It's a great idea, isn't it, Bronwyn? I think it's fantastic. I'd like to see more of it. So moving on, we'll get another opportunity to look at the wrecks from another view a bit further around the track. We're moving through an area of mangroves. And something like this probably 50 years ago would have been completely cleared so that residents of the apartments could have their uninterrupted sea views. Now, fortunately, we're a little bit smarter. We do understand that the importance of mangroves to the health of the waterways. When the tide's up, this is an area for a nursery, if you like, for young sea life. The mangroves themselves filter the waterways and have taken a big part in helping to heal this area through the rehabilitation of the area. The tide's very low at the moment. I don't even know what that is out there in the middle of the water. Perhaps another wreck of a barge. There's on top of the 4 or 5 shipwrecks around here, there are barges and other structures beneath the water as well. But this is the mouth of Haslam's Creek, which is one of 2 tributaries that flows into Homebush Bay. And we're going to cross that bridge in a moment and walk along the roadway to get to another viewpoint. So as I said, this area was very industrial. And in the late 1990s, leading up to the Sydney Olympic Games, the big remediation project underwent to improve the area. The waterways are still not considered safe for fishing, however, although life is returning, which is a very positive sign. We can hear the cicadas in the background. For anybody who's not from a country that drives on the left, we're about to cross the road. And there's no official crossing here, so please don't be alarmed that the traffic will be coming from my right because we drive on the left. I just need to look for a suitable break in the traffic, and I just got lucky. So here we go. So the bridge here is quite narrow. There's no footpath on the other side. That's why we had to cross the road. Good morning. I just wanted to let those people pass before we pause and look up the stream. So this is Haslam's Creek, one of the 2 tributaries that flows into Homebush Bay, lined on both sides with mangroves. And this hill over on the left is it's a bit hard to see between the trees. It's actually a man-made hill. So a lot of the soil, the toxic soil that was gathered up after those toxic industries closed down was moved into one place and then capped with concrete. There are now 3 of those hills within Sydney Olympic Park, which is the area that we're actually going to be walking through. Good morning. On the hill, do you mean, Michelle? Yes, it's a spiralling path that goes up to the top of the hill. I'll show you that in a second. Oh, I beg your pardon. I don't know what that is. It actually looks a bit like a pipe. but I can't think what purpose it's for. I don't know what the purpose of it might be. So yeah, I'm sorry I can't answer that question for you, Michelle. I'm not sure what that is. I do know that you often see birds sitting on it, drying their wings, like shags or cormorants. And we're just stopping here for a moment because I wanted to show you the paper bark on this beautiful tree. Anyone who remembers Matt's tours, Matt, who no longer guides for Hago, unfortunately, used to have a lot to say about paper bark. The Indigenous people would have used it in various ways. They might have used it for absorbent material. Yes, he was. Matt is great. He's fantastic. And he's been a lot of help to me as well. So it would have been used for absorbent materials, for, say, for instance, nappy or diaper lining. It might also have been used for wrapping food in for cooking, say fish, for example. And this road here is lined with those beautiful paper bark trees all the way along. I feel like I'm a bit shouty at the moment because the traffic's a bit noisy. And this is another view of that man-made hill. We've got electric bikes and we can cycle up to the top of that. There's quite a nice view from the top. And maybe on another tour, I'll take advantage of that. So just before we cross the road again, I'll orientate you a little on where we are and where we're going today, although you can do that in the map on your screen as well. But this is the Parramatta River that I mentioned, and that's the direction to Sydney Harbour and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. This is Homebush Bay with Haslam's Creek that we just crossed. We started our tour at about this point here, and we're walking around. The Shipwrecks are here. We're going to walk around the wetlands, and hopefully we'll get a chance to have a look in there as well. Okay, so we're going to cross this road again. This is the Bennelong Parkway, and I mentioned the Bennelong Bridge a little earlier. Bennelong was a Wangal man, and he became quite important to Captain or Governor Arthur Phillip of the First Fleet, the early settlers. Okay, we're ready to cross. Bennelong was actually captured by the British. Governor Phillip was under instruction from the King at the time to establish relationships with whatever peoples he encountered in the new settlement. Bennelong and another man by the name of Colby were actually captured. So at this point we're entering Sydney Olympic Park at the very northern end of it, which has been largely renaturalised with native vegetation. So Bennelong became an important intermediary between the Indigenous peoples and the First Fleet. There were roughly 1,300 people on the First Fleet, which was roughly equivalent to the number of people in the Wangal clan that inhabited the Sydney Harbour area. The British, of course, had the advantage because the locals didn't have the resistance necessary to fight the illnesses that the British brought with them, such as smallpox. There's lots of little birds around here, and if I can find one that'll sit still long enough, I'll see if I can get a shot of it. But they're just too quick for me. Little birds called fairy wrens. And because that's the female, she's brown and she blends in, and we just can't see her, unfortunately. The male is absolutely magnificent, bright blue. But I can't spot him at the moment either. This is a popular path for walkers and cyclists. All right, so at this point here, I'm going to turn off the path briefly, and we're going to take a look at Shipwreck Lookout, which is marked by this metal bronze plaque, which I can read out for you. Oh, thanks so much, Michelle. That's fantastic. I appreciate that. Shipwreck Lookout, I'll read this to you because you probably can't read it. This peninsula was reclaimed in the 1950s to load bricks from the nearby brick pit onto barges. It is located in a part of Homebush Bay that became a shipwrecking yard for the Port of Sydney in 1996. Remnant hulks can now be viewed through a telescope, which I've never succeeded in making work, and via mirrors. The area was opened up to the public in 2003. It provides habitat for estuarine animals, including birds protected by the China-Australia and Japan-Australia Migratory Bird Agreement treaties, and is flanked by mangroves protected under the Fisheries Management Act 1994. It is now an interpretive and scenic lookout, and that's signed by the Sydney Olympic Park Authority 2006. I hope that was helpful. So Bennelong was appreciated by Governor Phillip. He was actually taken back to England and showed off around London society. On his return in 1790, Governor Phillip rewarded him by building him a hut on Bennelong Point in Sydney Harbour. And now a far more famous and impressive house occupies Bennelong Point. So I wonder if any of you know what that house might be. Hi Dahlia, hi Christine. No guesses? The Sydney Opera House is the famous house that sits on Bennelong Point. I just noticed that my signal has dropped a little, so I hope we're still good. Looks like someone's lost a bike helmet. Okay, so here we are on the other side of Homebush Bay. I'm getting a completely different view of those two shipwrecks. On the right, the SS Mortlake Bank, and on the left, the SS Airfield. They were both colliers, steam colliers, and they were used to transport coal between Newcastle and Sydney. They were part of what was known as the 60 milers, which is the distance between Newcastle and Sydney. The airfield was also used during World War II to ship supplies to the Americans, which I believe were located perhaps on Guam, somewhere like that. The wrecks were deliberate and they were scuttled here. So they were no longer used, and it's basically a ship's graveyard. Yes, we probably wouldn't make those same decisions nowadays. The tide's very low at the moment, and there's lots of other objects and hazards poking up out of the water. Something out there I've never seen before. It's probably wood. I wouldn't like to bring a small boat around here. You'd probably hit half the stuff in the water. And if you like the contrast between modern and abandoned, that's probably an interesting shot of Road Central and these two old barges that were used for transporting bricks. There were brickworks not far from here. which almost went under the bulldozer when they were redeveloping for the Sydney Olympics, until an endangered frog was found. So now the brick pits have been turned into an interpretive location that you can walk around and learn more about the golden bell frog, which is rather good. Okay, I'm going to go back this way now. I'm walking a bit slower than I normally would today, so we may not cover off everything that I hope to. My knees are a little bit sore today. I've been doing a lot of walking this week. So I'm also going to just be a little bit careful because some of the path is muddy and slippery. I thought I saw somebody go out here, and if that's the case, I won't interrupt their privacy. It's a very small spot. Oh no, it's okay. Here we go. So there's a little seat here. Oh, I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but we're going to give it a try. There's a big spider web there with a cicada, possibly even 2 cicadas caught in it. Actually, you know what? It is the cicada and the spider that we're looking at. How's that? Dinner time. Dinner time. There we go. I'm sure there's some people a bit creeped out by seeing that spider. So we're moving on. So I guess right, Michelle, huh? Okay, so from this spot here, we can see a nice reflective shot of the roads buildings. Good old IKEA in the background over there. Oh, hi, Judy. Thanks for joining me. I'm happy to have you along. And tucked away here in the mangroves, just at the end of this little alcove, is another shipwreck. And I don't know the name of this one. I know that it's marked incorrectly on Google Maps as the SS Heroic. But it's not the Heroic because we're going to go and see. I'm actually leaning right out over water so you can get this shot. There we go. The SS Heroic is located a little further around the track. So there's another shot of this one we just saw just around the bend here. Whereabouts are you, Judy? All right, so here we go. Here's that same ship from a different angle. Now slowly walk up because I'm not sure what shots you want. You can just see the rudder stuck in the mud down there and what looks like an anchoring point. And then as we lean out over the rail, we get a shot right into the bow. Yes, that's correct, Aaron. I'll show you an information board when we get round to the other side. The Heroic actually lies side by side with the Kurungi, just around the bend a little way. I don't know if that's a good shot. Okay. Right, sorry about the turn there. I've just noticed that my battery on my gimbal is running low. I really hope we don't lose gimbal power, otherwise I'll be walking with the phone in my hand and no one wants that. Thanks, Carol. Yeah, if you're like me, you love those sort of old rusty, interesting old shots. I'm just going to get ahead of these girls rather than follow them. Okay, so as I said, because I'm walking a bit slower, I'm up against the clock a little bit because I need to tell you about Darcy. Wentworth Point, which is where we started our tour from, is named after a significant person. Do you sometimes forget your words? Anyway, Darcy Wentworth was the very first paying passenger to arrive in New South Wales. Oh, Judy, I grew up on the Northern Beaches, so we're almost neighbours. So Darcy arrived on the Second Fleet in 1790. The disastrous Second Fleet that lost a quarter of its convicts, roughly 250 people on the way over. And then even more died once they got here from smallpox and other diseases. Morning. Some magpie song for you. So that's the Australian magpie. Isn't his song lovely? Hey Judy, I grew up at Narrabeen. So as I said, Darcy was the first fare-paying passenger on the Second Fleet. The colony had been waiting for supplies to arrive, but they lost one of the vessels in heavy seas. So when the Second Fleet arrived, they weren't much use. They didn't have much to add to the colony, which was pretty hungry by that stage. Anyway, Darcy had been living in London and training to be a doctor. He came from landed gentry, and as you can probably imagine, when you're studying to be a doctor, particularly in those days, it doesn't pay particularly well. He barely had enough to scrape together for board. So he and his friends came up with another way to supplement their income. They were pretty good at playing cards. So they used to frequent inns and gaming houses where the wealthy used to hang out. But because card playing is illegal, the people that they won against would feel no obligation to pay up. So Darcy and his friends came up with a way to recoup what was owed to them. Thanks, Michelle. Some of the story that I'm going to cover is actually featured in that article, but you won't find it anywhere else. And it's under a heading that's marked dubious. I'll get onto that in a moment. First of all, I want to show you the last of the 4 shipwrecks that we'll see today. Because it's low tide, I can actually get some way out a little bit closer to allow you to see this one, which we couldn't do the other day because it was high tide. I do need to be very careful though, because it is very slippery and very muddy, and if I'm not careful, you're going to be looking at the sky. So this is the SS Kurungi, and lying side by side with the Kurungi is this is the HMAS Kurungi. Lying side by side on the other side of it, out of view and in a less whole state, is the SS Heroic. You can see them from the aerial shot in Google Maps. So, and there's also an information board that I'll get to in just a moment. The HMAS Kurungi was a boom vessel, which means that it used to lay boom lines across Darwin Harbour during World War II against the invading Japanese forces. And so I'm just trying to get a shot of this mangrove tree down here because it's rather nice. There. It's Karangi. Okay, so the boom lines that they laid across Darwin Harbour were a series of drums containing explosives, is my understanding of how they work. There's another something or other over there. I don't know what that is. It's just a little wreck of a hulk of some sort. Lots of things you don't normally see when it's high tide. Let's get round to this information board so you can see what I'm talking about. And the Heroic was a tug. Thanks, Angela. Okay, now I'm going to hold the camera above it at a slight angle, and hopefully you can get a shot of this information board for anyone who's interested in more information of the history of the shipwrecks. So the one on the right is the Kurungi, and the one on the left is the Heroic, the tug vessel. And I'm going to move it over to the right. You might want to, anyone who's interested, you might want to take a photo of the text so you can look at it later. Obviously, I don't expect you to be able to read that now. Okay, moving away from it. So behind me we have the wetlands for the migratory birds. I'm going to find a spot to peer through the trees just to see what birds we have out there today. Looks like there's a lot of seagulls. The other day we had some pelicans. Okay, there's not really a lot out there today, and they're quite far out, so unfortunately we don't get to really see them. We'll walk around to the bird hide while I keep telling you about the Darcy Wentworth story. So Darcy was arrested, charged and arrested for highway robbery, basically. Did I mention that he was holding up coaches as they left the gaming houses? So he was charged and arrested 3 or 4 times, and he got off 3 or 4 times. Because obviously if you're a society person... no, it's the same wetlands, Aaron. It's just that it was high tide last time, and it is low tide today. That's why it looks very different. This is a shot of the hide that we ended up in last time. That's where we're heading to right now. The radio tower, yeah, it's over there somewhere. I am standing, or was standing at a slightly different angle just now. We have, over in the background there, we have Toyota. We're very much in the heart of Sydney. Just over the other side of that Roads Central building, we've got Hewlett Packard, Nestle. Where I was near the Eden Gardens yesterday, it's Canon. All the big names, they're all around here. So obviously, if you're a witness against a highway robber who stole all your cash in an illegal game, you might not be so keen to be named as a witness. And that's basically what allowed Darcy to get off. But his reputation was following him. And he'd already decided that he wanted to leave London and be a surgeon in the colonies for the East India Company. India was one of his preferences, but when he heard about the new colony in New South Wales, he decided to apply for that. He'd been knocked back a few times, but now that he was anxious to get out of town, he paid for his passage on the second fleet. Yeah, I can see the radio tower now, Aaron. When I sit down in the hide, I'll show you. So the plan was that he and his young wife would travel together to New South Wales. I do need to be a bit quiet here. There's some people in the bird hide. Obviously, after a little bit of quiet. So we're going to have to cut this story a little bit short. Basically, a few weeks before Darcy Wentworth sailed for New South Wales, he travelled to Gretna Green with a young girl, using the relaxed Scottish marriage laws, married a young 15-year-old Jane. Their plan had been to return to the family in England and receive the family's blessing. It didn't go to plan. The family wasn't impressed. They decided they'd refused to sanction the marriage, and Darcy still had to leave in a hurry. This left Jane heartbroken, and she poured her heartache into her writing and became a famous writer. She also named a lot of her characters after people in her life. So I'm wondering if anyone has managed to work out who Jane is and who the characters in her novels might have been. Can everyone hear me? I know I'm talking very quietly. Yes, Carol, correct. Mr. Darcy, Jane Austen, that's right. No, not Jane Eyre, Jane Austen. Jane Eyre was a character, I think. Yeah, that's okay. So I'm sorry I had to end this rather quickly. Running out of time. Spent too much time at the beginning of the tour. I'm going to have to sort all that out for anyone who's returning another time, but the weather was better. So this is the bird hide. It's lovely just sitting here quietly. Do you mind if I stop talking for a moment? yes, Michelle, that was something that it appears was kept quiet by the family. It was something that family did not want known about her. It sounds like rumour, but it has been well researched by a descendant of the Wentworth family. And he's mentioned in that Wikipedia article that the link was placed. Was it you that popped that link in? Yes, that's right. So his name was Wal Walker, and he sourced all his facts. He referred to letters, writings, journals, historical documents, court documents. So everything that he's written has been sourced. So although it's not readily acknowledged, and you may see in places like Darcy Wentworth's obituary, for example, an oblique mention of his private life, it doesn't go any further than that. Darcy Wentworth, of course, was the father of William Wentworth, which was one of the three explorers, Blaxland, Wentworth and Lawson, who travelled across the Blue Mountains. Neither of them married. That's right. Darcy fathered his eldest child on the way over here to a convict woman by the name of Catherine Crowley. But Darcy and Jane never saw each other again. It was really sad. He tried his entire life to return to England, and as I understand, never managed to do so. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I will get better at telling it too, by the way. I just need practice. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. Look, I'm going to wind this up in a moment. I hope to bring more facts to the tour as I learn them myself. And I need to have a play around with the length of time as well to see if I need to make it longer or even do it in 2 parts. Thanks, Judy. Yeah, I felt that was appropriate to do it that way as well, just to stop talking every now and again. All right, I'm going to say bye now, and I really need to turn the camera around to do this, don't I? All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming along. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. See you again on another tour. Bye now. Bye.